Raised my 3 siblings since age 19 after mom abandoned us, but when my sister said I was jealous of her college life, I cut off her tuition. I, 24 female, guess I should start this from the very beginning, so everyone can get the whole story. It all really went downhill when I was 19. My mom, well, she has had a problem with drugs for as long as I can remember. It was always a part of our lives, sadly. But when I was 19, she just left. No goodbye, no note, nothing. Just gone. I was 19, and my sister, Catherine, was only 14 at the time. We were living in this old, rundown house that my mom had been renting. It wasn't great, to say the least. At first, I was really worried about my mom. I mean, where did she go? Was she okay? But then, I started seeing her posts on Facebook. She was all smiles, with some new guy, like nothing was wrong. It was clear she had made a choice to leave us, and that really hurt. It wasn't like she had been forced out or something. She chose to leave. Catherine and I, we tried to make it work in that old house. We figured we could handle things ourselves, you know. We were young, but we were trying. But the house was just falling apart. There was mold growing everywhere, which made us cough all the time. We had ants crawling all over the kitchen, no matter how much we cleaned. And the neighborhood. It wasn't safe. There were always police sirens, and we were scared to even go outside after dark. It got to the point where we knew we couldn't stay there. It wasn't just inconvenient, it was dangerous for our health and our safety. It went on like that, getting worse, for a long time. The landlord would not fix anything, and ignored our messages. It felt like one bad thing after another, my mom leaving, then us basically living in a falling apart house. I kept thinking that things would just get magically better. That maybe mom would come to her senses. But it was clear I was going to need a long-term plan, and that plan had to start with getting us all out of that house before one of us got seriously hurt or sick. I am not exaggerating one bit when I say that. It was terrible. I spent more and more time just hoping nothing bad would happen, rather than focusing on studying or getting good grades. When I turned 20, I finally decided we had to move. The house was just unlivable. I found a small, affordable apartment, not fancy, but safe and clean. I took Catherine, who was 15 by then, and our other little sister, who was only 9. I didn't officially go to court or anything to become their guardian. It wasn't about taking them away from my mom, it was about getting them to a safe place. My mom wasn't around to make decisions, and someone had to step up. So, I did. Then, things got even more complicated. A relative called me, really upset. She told me about my mom having another baby, a little boy, who was just 2 years old. My mom's addiction was really bad at this point, and this relative was terrified for the baby's safety. She basically begged me to take him in, saying she couldn't do it herself. She made it sound like the baby was in real danger if I didn't do something. So, I did. I took in my little brother. Suddenly, I was 20 years old, taking care of 3 kids, a 15-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 2-year-old. It was overwhelming, to put it mildly. I had never planned on being a mom, especially not at that age, and certainly not to 3 kids all at once. But what choice did I have? I couldn't let them stay in a dangerous situation. Family is family, and you do what you have to do. That's what I kept telling myself, anyway. I just had to keep going. I remember thinking that, from the outside, people probably thought I had it all figured out. I mean, I was holding down a job, I had a roof over our heads, and the kids were fed. But inside, I was constantly worried. Worried about money, worried about the kids, worried about everything. There was never a moment of peace, never a chance to just relax and breathe. It was just constant, grinding responsibility. And I felt so alone. There were no other adults I could really turn to for help, practical or emotional. It's really hard to explain the feeling of being responsible for so many people, especially when you're still practically a kid yourself. You have to be the grown-up, even when you don't feel like one. You have to make all the decisions, big and small, and there's no one to share the load with. And you're always aware that if you mess up, it's not just you who suffers, it's all these other little lives that depend on you. It was a very heavy weight to carry, especially at that age. I constantly felt like I was failing. I'd always worked, even when I was in high school. I needed the money to help out at home, even before my mom left. But after I took in my siblings, it became even more crucial. I worked any job I could find, in stores, at fast food places, doing deliveries. Anything to bring in some cash. It was exhausting, working all those hours and then coming home to take care of the kids. I had wanted to go to college. I had even gotten accepted to a few places. But there was just no way. Between working all the time and taking care of my siblings, there weren't enough hours in the day. And there certainly wasn't any money for tuition. So, I had to put that dream on hold. It hurt, seeing other people my age going off to college, having fun, and learning new things. But I knew my priority was my siblings. My whole focus was on making sure they had what they needed. I wanted them to have a good life, to have choices. I wanted them to be able to go to college if they wanted to have careers, to be happy. I didn't want them to have the kind of childhood I had. I wanted them to have a real chance at a good future, even if it meant I had to sacrifice mine. That's what I kept telling myself, anyway. The hardest part was that I felt like I had no one to talk to about it. I didn't have any friends my age who understood what I was going through. And I certainly didn't have any adults in my life who were encouraging me to do anything for myself. No one ever said, "Hey, you deserve to go to college too," or "You need to take care of yourself." It was always just about the kids, which I understood, but it was also incredibly isolating. I felt like I was invisible, like my own dreams didn't matter. I was constantly running, working, cleaning, cooking, taking care of the kids, and trying to keep everything from falling apart. There was never any time to just stop and think, to plan for the future, or even just to rest. And the worst part was knowing that this was my life, for the foreseeable future. It was just day after day of the same grind, with no real hope of things changing. Fast forward a few years, and Catherine, my oldest sister, turned 19 and got accepted to college. I was so proud of her. She'd worked really hard, and she deserved it. She got a lot of financial aid, which was great, but there was still about $6,000 left to pay each year. I told her I would cover it. I didn't want her to have to take out student loans if I could help it. I also agreed to give her $50 a month for personal expenses. I knew $50 wasn't a lot, but it was all I could afford. I was still working multiple jobs, and the cost of everything, especially daycare for my youngest brother, was just insane. I was barely making ends meet as it was. But I was determined to help Catherine get through college without being burdened by debt. I thought I was doing a good thing, a sisterly thing. I wanted her to have the college experience I never had. Then, one day, Catherine called me. She said she needed another $100 to go out with a friend. I told her I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the money. She got really angry, saying that the $50 I gave her was barely enough to cover her sanitary supplies. She made it sound like I was being deliberately stingy. I was shocked. I mean, I knew $50 wasn't much, but it was all I could manage. I told her then that she needed to get a job. Even a part-time job would help her out. And that's when she really laid into me. She accused me of being jealous that she was in college and I wasn't. She said I was trying to ruin her college experience because I was resentful that I hadn't gone. She then started questioning me about where all my money was going. As if it was any of her business. She even made this comment about how my youngest sister was in school half the day, implying that I didn't have to pay for much daycare. She had absolutely no clue. Daycare costs a fortune, even for part-time care. It was like she thought money just grew on trees. I was beyond frustrated. I explained to her that I'm a single adult, with 3 kids. I don't get child support, and the amount of money I had to fork out monthly was insane. I was so angry and hurt by what Catherine said. I started listing all the things I'd done for her, all the sacrifices I'd made. I reminded her that she hadn't even applied for an RA position at her college, which would have given her free housing. She'd said it was too much work. I just couldn't believe how selfish she was being. I have been busting my butt off for her and my other siblings. And then, I just snapped. She kept going on about how jealous I was, and I just sarcastically agreed with her. I said, "Yeah, Catherine, you're right. I'm totally jealous. So jealous, in fact, that I'm not paying for your tuition anymore." I told her she could get a summer job to cover her expenses or take out a loan. I told her I was dead serious and hung up the phone. I know it was harsh, but I was just at my breaking point. After I hung up, she started sending me all these apologetic texts. But I was still so angry that I didn't even respond. I just couldn't believe she'd been so ungrateful and so clueless about everything I was doing for her. I felt like all my sacrifices were being completely ignored. It was like she thought I was just a walking ATM, with no feelings or needs of my own. Then, the doubts started creeping in. Was I being a total jerk? Was I overreacting? Was Catherine just being a typical teenager? I started second-guessing myself, wondering if I'd made the wrong decision. I mean, I knew Catherine was young, and college was a whole new world for her. Maybe she just didn't understand the value of money yet. Maybe I was being too hard on her. But then I reminded myself that Catherine would always have a home with me. I would never let her be homeless. That wasn't what this was about. It was about responsibility, about appreciating the help she was getting, and about understanding that I had limits. I wanted her to have a good life, but I also wanted her to learn to be responsible for herself. I had made a choice to take care of my siblings, and I didn't regret it. But I also deserved some respect and appreciation for all the hard work I was putting in. I wasn't asking for much, just a little understanding. I should probably add some more background about my mom. Like I mentioned before, she struggled with addiction her whole life. This wasn't a sudden thing. It was something we grew up with. Over the years, drugs destroyed all her relationships. Family stopped reaching out, they were all tired of the broken promises and the drama. It was just easier to stay away. My mom did not have much say, she was given a choice, me and my siblings or drugs. She chose drugs. That's why I ended up being the one to take care of my siblings. There wasn't anyone else. It wasn't like I had a bunch of aunts and uncles lining up to help. They were all done with my mom, and, unfortunately, that meant they were pretty much done with us too. I don't blame them, really. Addiction is a messy, destructive thing, and it's hard to deal with. But it did mean that I was on my own. I do not blame her, but I do resent how I had to grow up. I'm 24 now, and I've been basically raising my siblings for 5 years. It's been hard, but I don't regret it. I love them, and I want them to have a better life than I did. But I also have my own dreams. I want to improve my situation, to get a better job, to maybe even go back to school someday. It's just hard to see how to make that happen when all my time and energy are focused on taking care of everyone else. I've been looking into a free CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, certificate program. It's something I could do relatively quickly, and it would give me a better paying job than what I have now. It wouldn't be my dream career, but it would be a step in the right direction. It would be a way to start building a better future for myself, not just for my siblings. I want them to have more opportunities, to not be limited by their background or by my choices. I want them to see that it's possible to overcome challenges and to build a good life, even when things are tough. I want to be a good example for them, to show them that hard work and determination can pay off. I know it won't be easy, but I'm determined to make it happen. I have to, for myself and for them. It's time for me to start thinking about my own future, too. It's not selfish to want a better life for myself. It's actually necessary. I know I have a long road, but it just felt necessary to finally start putting myself first. Update. Okay, so I wanted to give an update on the situation with Catherine. I feel a little bad now, because I think I made her sound bad in my original post. I was just so angry when I wrote it, and I was only focusing on the negative. I was still really upset from our phone call, and I probably wasn't being entirely fair. She is normally a caring and loving person. Catherine came home for the summer, and we finally had a chance to talk face to face. It was good to see her, and it was definitely easier to talk in person than over the phone. We both kind of apologized for how we'd acted. I realized that I hadn't really been communicating well with her about my financial situation. She honestly didn't understand how tight things were. And she told me how she'd been feeling. She said that $50 a month really wasn't enough for anything, not even for basic stuff like toiletries and school supplies. She felt like she was missing out on a lot of things at college, like just going out for a fun night with her friends. And I realized she was right. It's not like she was asking for money to buy designer clothes or go on fancy trips. She just wanted to be able to have a little bit of fun, like a normal college student. We talked for a long time, and we both admitted that we'd overreacted. I think we were both just stressed and overwhelmed, and we took it out on each other. It was a relief to finally clear the air and understand where each other was coming from. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I had been carrying around all this anger and resentment, and it was just exhausting. It was so much better to talk it out and get back on the same page. I mean, she is still my sister. I explained to her how, after I agreed to pay for her first year, I literally had nothing left. After speaking with someone, I realized I needed to start saving, in case any emergencies cropped up. I couldn't keep going living paycheck to paycheck with nothing put away. So, after talking it out, Catherine and I came up with a plan. We decided that she'll take out a loan to cover her tuition for the next year. It's not ideal, but it's the best option we have right now. We're going to look into getting a loan from a family member first, and if that doesn't work, we'll go through the official channels. It's not a punishment or anything, it's just a practical solution. Catherine also said she's expecting to get some kind of refund next semester, so that will help with some of the expenses. We talked about everything, not just tuition, but also her living accommodations and groceries. We're trying to think about the whole picture, not just the immediate costs. It's a lot to figure out, but we're working on it together. It feels good to have a plan, even if it's not perfect. It's better than feeling like we're constantly scrambling and reacting to things. Catherine also agreed to get a job over the summer, which will help her cover her personal expenses. She said she can't really work during the school year because her class schedule is really demanding and spread out, making it hard to fit in a job. It's not that she doesn't want to work, it's just that her schedule makes it really difficult. I actually reached out to a friend of mine who graduated from the same college a few years ago. I asked her if she knew of any resources that might be available to Catherine, like on-campus jobs with flexible hours, or any scholarships or grants she might be eligible for. My friend was really helpful and gave Catherine a bunch of ideas, so that's something she's going to look into when she goes back to school. We're trying to explore all the options, not just rely on loans. As for me, I've decided to hold off on the CNA program for now. I started thinking about it more, and I realized that what I really want to do is become an EMT, emergency medical technician. It's a bit more training, but it would mean better benefits, like health insurance, which I desperately need. And it's a career that I think I'd find more fulfilling. The pay is about the same as what I'm making now with all my different jobs, but the stability and the benefits would make a huge difference. I'm a little nervous about going back to school, to be honest. I wasn't the greatest student in high school, and it's been a while. But I'm determined to give it my best shot. I'm going to start saving up for the EMT program, and I'm going to take my time with it. I don't have to rush into anything. I can work towards my goals at my own pace. I'm finally starting to feel like I have some control over my own life, and that's a really good feeling. I haven't shown Catherine the Reddit post, and I don't think I will. Some of the comments were pretty harsh, and I don't want her to see them. People were comparing her to our mom, and that's just not fair. Catherine's not like our mom. She's a good kid, and she's trying her best. She just made a mistake, and we're working through it. I don't want her to be hurt by some of the things people said online. I will add that I never expected the post to get as much traction as it did. Overall, I think things are moving in a positive direction. Catherine and I are communicating better, we have a plan for her college expenses, and I'm starting to make plans for my own future. It's not easy, and there are still going to be challenges, but I feel like we're on the right track. We're both working towards a better future, for ourselves and for our family. And that's all I can really ask for. It's a long journey, but we're taking it one step at a time. And having Catherine by my side in all of this, rather than feeling like we are against each other, has made all the difference. It finally feels like we are a team.